Everybody, can you hear me okay? No, everybody can except for Michael, but can everybody else hear okay then? So, good evening, good night to be here. Anything inside is better than being outside tonight, of course, because it is turned off nice and cold. Pastor Johnny down there in Louisiana where it's warm. So, just want to open in prayer tonight, and then we'll get started. And we're going to try and have a little bit of fun going through this stuff tonight. And we're usually a little bit of a comedy show anyhow, so hopefully you guys get something that that are shepherding this, this small church that's growing in St. James. Father, we just thank you, and we just welcome you into our midst. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
So we were asked to talk about respectful communication, and like I said, we looked at it, and as we talked, last week's message that the pastors had shared was on conflict resolution and the steps that you can take to work through, situations where you end up having conflict, and healthy ways to work through that conflict resolution. And as we talked about putting together our notes, we were looking at it that it's really, for us, it's conflict prevention through respectful communication. And I think if we really focus on that, a lot of times, the situation that could turn into conflict could be avoided altogether, and prevented. So I wanted to start with a little bit of background. We've been married over 31 years to each other. And I say that
Just
because a lot of people are like, yeah. Thank you, Miss Laquita. So let me make a note. So first of all, I'll acknowledge she deserves a medal, because it's not easy, being me. We both kind of consider ourselves to be type A personalities. We're the kind of people individually, we get a project, we're going, and you're welcome to come alongside, help us out and things, but if you're not helping, then you're in the way, and we'll just bulldoze right on over and stuff. So that is
we're pretty nice, though. That kind of was not a good sales pitch. We're pretty nice.
We are.
Sorry, go ahead.
We are. But those what we found with our personalities, both being very much driven and in charge of things, is that we have found over the years that we have our places, where she is very tenderhearted in certain areas that I am not, and I am, likewise, I'm soft in some of the spots that, that she's really strong in. And so it's not been a conflict for us as we've gone through. We found that it works really well together. We're able to bounce stuff off. For all intents and purposes, because of our personality types, if you do those personality tests and who your perfect spouse is, we probably shouldn't be married, because we're very driven with some of that stuff. But you know what, we've been married a long time, and I think we've got this down. She's in it for a life sentence. For better or for worse, that's right. So
we're praying for better. It's getting better.
Yeah. I was just going to share two more things, a couple more things. We've never planned out a strategy of how we deal with conflicts. It's not like we sat down in the beginning and said, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. And we're going to agree on these things, and whatever. We never kind of mapped that out. We didn't set up kind of the ground rules for how to have a disagreement or a safe word. When she does come up with one,
I'm working on one. It's going to be good.
It'll be funny.
It's going to be funny.
It'll be one that when it comes up, you won't be able to keep fighting because you'll be too busy laughing. That's what she does. So, but in all these years, I can say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. She does that occasionally. But in all these years, 31 years that we've been married, we have never had a verbal argument. Never had one. 31 years. We've had disagreements, yes, absolutely. Arguments, no. We raised our kids, 3 children in the house, and they've never seen us argue and fight.
Not ugly. Yeah, we never have gotten ugly. Name calling, physical, never.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I want to say, kind of the background, is, we respect each other and we desire each other. I picked her out of a crowd. No, it was really a short list for me of eligible suitors. But
Brother.
it's just, and Miss Shirley, along with Miss Laquita.
We got some really good hecklers this evening.
Yeah, it's one of those things, when you're dating and when you're courting and stuff, it's always your best behavior forward. She was transparent from the beginning. She's like, this is what you get.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah, and she really hasn't changed much. I mean, we've matured, but
yeah, for sure.
but she really hasn't changed, the things that that are really important to her and I, over the years. But yeah, we respect each other and we desire each other to be with together. So.
In thinking about respectful communication, which we then termed conflict prevention, because really, it's like as we looked back, I'm like, there's so much, whether we even intended to or not, that's just the way our marriage has flowed, we've learned to respect each other so much that there's just so many places we wouldn't go. But in just the term respectful communication, I was kind of looking through the scriptures, and I think this scripture is a highlight for me. It's Romans 13:11 through 14, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, and do this, knowing the time that now it is nigh time to awake out of sleep. For now our salvation is nearer than we first believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Therefore, let us cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk properly, as in the day, not in revelry and drunkenness, not in lewdness and lust, not in strife and envy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ. Make no provision for the flesh to fulfill its lusts. Because how much of, if we're talking about respectful communication, how much, when you're talking about provision for the flesh, is that disrespectful communication? Because it's the open door for strife and pride. And we all know what happens to our relationships when we open the door to those things. So I just love this scripture verse. Put on Christ. Make no provision for the flesh.
So let me ask you all a question. What would you determine, how would you describe, what is respectful communication? And we have till around 7:15. So, Eric, yes.
So, I think first is think before you speak. If what you're going to say, and I try to do this as often as I can. It'd be like, hey, what I'm going to say might come across this way, and that is not my intent, but it's just the way I'm going to say it because it's the best way to say it, but please know my heart. So thinking before you speak, thinking about how it's going to be received, in your tone, body language, tell your face,
That's good. That's good. Yeah, very good.
Considerate of the receiver.
That's good way.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it.
It's really important to think of how they're going to hear what you have to say.
Right.
Anybody else? Pastor Jeannie?
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Sometimes it's not the right time to open up your mouth and express your opinion on X, Y, or Z. You look at your partner's face and go, oh, no matter what comes out of my mouth, it's not going to be well received at this moment. I'm just going to keep my lips in.
That's really good.
Yeah, really important to, for those online that might not have heard, Pastor Jeannie was just sharing knowing when not to speak, is really important. Being aware, you talked about, watching their face. People's face, I say all the time, we can read Angel. I know when I'm getting in trouble because her face will say it. It's like a billboard running across.
This I've trained pretty well. The Lord has helped train this pretty well. This, it needs to get saved. That's
Yeah,
my
sometimes.
struggle.
But that's a really good point. Is being involved, and we're going to talk about some of these things. We'll come back and you'll hear some of the same stuff that you said.
Yeah, you guys are
as we
stealing
go
our
through.
notes.
Yeah, you've read ahead, but yeah, it's really good. It's being aware of the person and how they're reacting to what you're saying. And you might say something and you get that facial expression from them that's like, ooh, I hit a nerve. let me rephrase this, and let me, this is not my intent. I'm not trying to hurt you. Yeah, really good points, though.
In kind of as we were building our notes, I did an internet search and just looking for like, what does the internet tell you is the 5 traits, traits of a respectful person. And I actually found an article. It says 5 traits of a respectful person. And I think AI gave me a really good answer on this one, so I'm going to go with it. They said empathy and consideration. And for those, if you may wonder, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. So we have empathy and consideration, honesty and integrity, active listening, boundaries, and appreciation. And I'm like, those are really good traits. I mean, those, you think about it, that makes a solid relationship. If you can start walking those things out, I mean, that's solid.
Yeah, any one of those items in their own, is
they're all
admirable.
quality.
And so having thinking of all 5 of those things, if we can work on those, that's great. So last week the pastors talked about again, healthy conflict resolution, the steps we can take, when you do have that conflict that comes up, and knowing when to stop, knowing when to give the other person a break, let them walk off and, get some fresh air, things like that. A lot of good points in there. There were 2 things that I wanted to recap for tonight that I think is really important in our topic. The first one is disagreement does not always need to be contentious. And contentious is causing or likely to cause an argument. So there's just sometimes that it's just your body language, that the way you approach the conversation, it just sets the tone before you even open your mouth, and you come up with aggressively, or a posture, or a look on your face. You can have a disagreement, but again, it doesn't have to be turn into something contentious in an argument. And the second one is owning your part, even if it's 1%. And they spent a lot of time in Pastor, and we'll talk about it some more.
Yeah, we're going to address this at least one more time because it was very impactful.
Yeah, it's just, none of us are perfect, right? I mean, we try. Sometimes we're just trying. And, but when you have a disagreement, there's always 2 opinions, and when you're married or you're in a relationship with somebody, you've got to value, their position and their opinion, their thoughts. You have no idea why they think the way they do. It could have been a previous situation, like an interaction they had, and it just caused, they have a preconceived notion of this is how they deal with this, or this is what it's going to turn into. Mm-hmm. And so you're already kind of starting behind the curve. But owning your part and just knowing that none of us are perfect. We've probably, whether we realize it or not, we've probably done something, that begs forgiveness, and be willing and be humble, I guess, to ask for that. So we're going to talk about respectful communication in our view, and we're not experts. We're still working through this stuff. As they say, we've left the train station. We haven't arrived yet, but we've left the train station. And we've been doing this a little bit, and she hasn't hurt me yet. So sharing just a little bit of our experiences over the 31 years of marriage so far.
Don't be bumping it.
And again, we're still figuring some things out. And you do that. We continue to grow because one of the things I have, life changes people. And as we go through situations and as we go through life, things come up, situation changes. The same thing can come up multiple times, over the course of years. And there's different factors, and you deal with it a little differently. And I believe that we learn, or we should, from every one of those situations we go through. So life changes people, and we have to be aware of that. Spiritual growth changes people. I will tell you, I'll admit, I am not the same person I was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I would have been just as happy to walk up and punch somebody in the mouth that said something that offended me. I don't do that anymore. So I haven't done it in a long time. But I don't have that thought. I kind of joke about it. It's like, just punch him in the neck. But I'm not doing it, and I don't and I don't really feel that in my heart. It's just kind of the way it's the comedic relief for me.
Yeah.
Through those situations. But spiritual growth in my life has really changed who I am. And then, of course, God's grace. It just changes people. When you sit back and you think about, how you should have been held accountable to something and you didn't out of his grace. And he's like, I love you anyhow, knucklehead. And, and you go back and you think about it. It's like, wow, I really messed up. I really messed up. But man, he still loves me. I've got a chance. I can do better next time. And I think as you go through and you really look at these things, and you appreciate his grace, I think it causes you to change, and you get better and better.
Yeah, opportunities to get better, even through challenges. God's with us in the challenges, and if we allow him to, he will use all those things to turn, the steps of the righteous are ordered of the Lord, and he will turn those things around for our good as long as we give him the opportunity to do that,
It's really good.
And as we're really so much of our Christian walk, one is learning to honor God, and the more we honor God, the more it becomes easier for that honor to flow out to others, to our spouse, or in our family relationships, friendships, church relationships. So when we talk about kind of establishing a lifestyle of honor, which really isn't that what respectful communication is? Really, honor is key. And just so we have a real definition of honor, it's high respect, great esteem, adherence to what is right or to a conventional standard of conduct, to regard with great respect. So I like to keep that definition kind of in your mind as you are dealing with decisions you make, interactions, and how you should be treating people.
Yeah, and this, wasn't in the notes, but I just think of it as we were raising the children, 2 sons and a daughter, and we really, a lot of time was spent, they're great when they're small, they're all kinds of fun, and then you start getting tired, and they turn like 3, but then they grow up and they hit that phase. What do they call it? Teenagers, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But but with my boys specifically, with my sons, I spent a lot of time talking to them about honor and integrity. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And then do it with the best. The best that you can do. It might not be perfect, but just have integrity. Because those are 2 things nobody can take away from you. You have to give them up. And I think in a relationship, it's easy to lose. Everybody wants to be appreciated, for what they bring into a relationship. And if you're attacking your spouse, or you're saying, just because you're angry about something and you're calling them names, or you're saying something mean and spiteful to them, there goes your honor. How's this person going to respect you? Moving forward, you're going to have to go back and it's many steps back, and then you've got to build that trust and that honor back in place. And then integrity, it's like, wow, one thing, it's gets tough one time, and then look how you treated me. And I was married before, before Angel, for 10 years. And I go back and I describe that it was 10 years and should have been 2. You're smarter as you get older and you look back on things. And it wasn't a lot of fighting, and it was just a mistake, and it just took several years, and I thought it'd get better, and it didn't get better until finally it ended, and it's like, we just need to go our own ways. But then God brings Angel, so awesome.
So you were going to talk about the first years of our marriage. I'll do it. I'll do it. When we got married, we had a baby on the way. So we had our oldest son, and Art started his job working overnights. So that was an adventure, all like overnights. And when we first got married, he brought a lot of debt in, Vanessa, it was a lot of debt into our relationship. And I really didn't know, I don't know how it was decided that I would do the bills, but somehow that got decided.
I think you just took the checkbook.
No, well, I wouldn't have if I'd have known you couldn't do anything with it. But so anyway. Did
we hug again?
Probably. Yeah, later I'm gonna hug you. As we started our marriage off, it was learning to trust God, but there was so many. I don't think I really realized it at the time, how much I was choosing to honor Him without. It's not like I saw it somewhere and I'm like, I should do that. I shouldn't point out, because I could have. Like, there could have been a lot of blame game, but we entered this covenant saying, this is the way it looks. He was always transparent. I just don't think I really fully grasped the gravity of the situation until you actually start walking out the situation. But I could have blamed him. I could have blamed him for the finances. I could have said, you should have done this or whatever. I never did that because to me, he was already doing everything he could do to provide. And that was I just didn't need to heap anything else on his shoulders. So as hard as the situation was, and it was hard, several years, like a couple, 2 or 3 several years, were difficult. Yeah,
so those first 8 years that I worked for the Postal Service, I had 2 choices, and it was bad and worse, I started on the 3 to 11:30 shift, 3 in the afternoon to 11:30, and I would never get to see my kids, kind of thing. So, so I thought, better choice for me is to work the midnight shift, which was 11 to 7:30 in the morning, and I could at least be there when the kids were up, and I could have lunch with them, or have dinner and take a nap. And I got a lot of broken segments of sleep.
Yeah.
I don't think I got 8 hours. Ever, and neither did she.
Neither did I, yeah.
Because we had the small
children. So no one was running on their best.
Yeah, but we made it through that stuff as hard as it was, that 8 years. And she brought it up last night as we were going through the notes that, I said we did it, by choice. It wasn't really choice. It was by necessity.
It was by necessity. And God opened that door. So it's not like you can't look at it, something that's hard, and say, well, I don't want to do that because that looks really hard. You know what? That was the door that God opened for us that says, hey, this shift pays a premium. This will pay your bills. And this was a season of,
and that's enough information.
Gird yourself up.
That's enough information. You all have to come back when we talk about finances.
The finance class will be fun.
And then we'll go through that and share, kind of where we were, and some of the struggles we had and how we worked through it.
That goes to, I have Romans 12:10 in the notes. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourself. And I think there are so many times that these situations in life become, totally invaluable learning opportunities that you get to honor one another and serve one another. And it's difficult, but then later when you look back, you're like, wow, I learned so much. I learned so much in that season. And I think it really solidifies like your character and who you are. And you just trust God as he grows you past that season,
Yeah. And for us, we both worked at the same place for a period of time, so we knew each other for a couple of years before we started, almost a couple of years before we started dating and seeing each other. And, you know, like I said, you're on your best behavior, right? So why are you looking at me like I can't be good? So I'm watching Caitlin. I'm going to have to put her name on the list too. But, you know, but like I said, you're on your best behavior. But, you know, the next section we have here is preferring one another. You know, when you find somebody and it's like, you know, there's just something about her, you know, when I met her. And there's a 9-year age difference between us, you know, so you go back, there's a lot of times, what?
No,
The laugh, so.
it was an inside thing, don't worry about it.
I was nervous
You're
there for a
okay.
moment, so. Whew.
And
I thought, so a 9-year age difference in there and things, and, you know, and sometimes, you know, that, you know, can be an issue, you know, you're kind of in different places in your life and stuff. She was the mature one, you know, and going through. And I just always, you know,
I was always old and nerdy. I couldn't help it.
you know, from the beginning, you know, once I realized that you know, I liked her, you know, and I wanted to pursue her. And I had to chase for a while. She's quicker than she looks, the short legs, but you know, it's all about, you know, selecting and then making that. So why not pursue the rest of your life in that relationship? You know, you got to put them, she's number one. I will go to the ends of the earth. I'll crawl through broken glass. You know, whatever it takes, you know, for her. And, you know, that's a place, that's a choice that you make. You know, why not live, you know, they talk about the honeymoon phase, you know, why not try to keep that going all the time? So last week the pastors had shared a comment about where to check our heart before addressing the issue. And it kind of goes with what Pastor Jeannie was saying a while ago, you know, like choosing what you say, you know, and kind of knowing when to stop.
Yeah.
You know, it's filter first is what I have on the notes, and speak later. And what I added to it is let your heart be that filter. You know, it's really easy. You know, I had a maintenance manager that came into St. Louis, and he came from a little small plant in Kentucky, and the St. Louis plant, we had 3 operational tours. You know, the plant was running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That was not the case where he came from. So he's already into something. The plant was 5-6 times bigger than the facility that he was at. We were a multi-floor facility. He was in a single floor. So it is paradigm shift difference. And he comes in and he spent a week on each tour, and he comes up to me, calls us all into the office one at a time, you know, over the course of a week. And he comes in and he says, "Art, buddy." And I'm thinking, well, this is either good or bad. I'm not sure. But he's like, "I've been watching you." And he said, we have 18 supervisors, you know, that are doing the job that you do. And he said, I've noticed that you're like here, and you're kind of a target. And before he said anything else, I said, "Jim, I'm really glad that you mentioned that." I said, because I'd like to know, how do we get these other 17 to do their job at this level too? And it just stunned him, you know, and he was like, well, I wasn't really thinking about that. I think you make yourself a target sometimes. And what he said might have hurt my feelings if I had any at the time. But what he said is the way you say things hurts people. You know, it's not what you're saying. It might be truthful. It might need to be said. But he said it's the way you say it that offends people or hurts people. And he said, so what I challenge you to do is run it through the filter one more time before it comes out of your mouth. So when you have that thought. And I will tell you that still today, I get into situations, maybe not today, yesterday, but anyhow, still
Good day today.
so far. But, you know, still today, I hear his voice, you know, like it was yesterday. That I hear him saying, you know, to run it through the filter one more time. Just because you think it doesn't mean that it has to be said the way that you're doing it. And I do. I find that I don't soften it, worried about somebody's feelings, but I try to make my statement in a way that's not offensive. Nobody's going to listen if you're always coming at them feet first, you know, and so So that was an issue. I still hear him say it. It's not what you're saying. It's how you say it, and it's really hurting people. And that's what makes you this target out here. So it was a learning moment.
Well, speaking of filtering our words, I'd read this quote from Kenneth Hagin before, but my mom brought it up the other day. Hi, Mom.
Love you, Mama D.
Love you, Mommy. I'm going to read it to you. It's thoughts may come and persist in staying, but thoughts that are not put into word or action die unborn. And I know a lot of times, really, he's saying that more probably your faith confession, but I actually thought about it. How much is that just true in general? You know, thoughts, so you can think something, but if it doesn't come out here, it dies unborn, you know, so that opportunity to offend, that opportunity to cause trouble, it doesn't ever take root because you didn't give into it. So I'm like, that quote is, well, it's very versatile. I like it.
I love it when you can have something like that that applies in multiple different ways. You know,
Yeah,
when you
it's
just
good.
just read the words and it applies to several situations. I like it.
And as we're talking about, you know, respectful communication, it really goes to covenant. And I was thinking about like the biblical definition of covenant, and I did some searching. I really liked this definition. So it's from the Bible Project, and it says a covenant is a relationship between two partners who make binding promises to each other and work together to reach a common goal. That's a key phrase to me. To work together to reach a common goal. They're often accompanied by oaths, signs, and ceremonies. Covenants define obligations and commitments, but they are different from a contract because they're relational and personal. Think of a marriage. A husband and wife choose to enter into a formal relationship, binding themselves to one another in lifelong faithfulness and devotion. Then they work as partners to reach a common goal, like building a life or raising children. And I love the whole, it's a common goal, which means it requires unity, you know, just that we're in covenant together. We rely on one another. We link arms together because we should have the same goal in mind, right? We're not trying to sabotage each other, whether it's finances, just how we communicate together, whether we're raising a family, a ministry, whatever. Unity is so important.
So again, adding to the notes here, but what are some of the things, if you just kind of think of things you've read over the years, what are some of the different things that cause trouble in marriages, especially in the beginning? Anybody? Yeah, unity?
Disunity.
Disunity? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Gene.
You're not seeing things the same way? Yeah. Anything else? Finances. That's a big one. It's it's really hard. You know, you start out, you know, young marriage and you don't necessarily have a lot of money, or you bring you bring a lot of debt in, you know, and you struggle through that, and that's a pain point, right? It's causes arguments and discontent. What about children? You know, a lot of young couples, you know, right away want to start having a family, build a family.
Disagreeing on how to raise the children, disagreeing on how to spend the money. I mean,
what school to put them in? What
yeah.
Or mixed family.
That,
Oh, yeah.
Husband and wife already having children.
Ours, mine, and theirs, or whatever.
True.
Yeah.
Have children from
That's a big one.
previous relationships and trying to mix the families and stuff. So, and we all go, you know, you have your independence. You know, a lot of times, you know, you've been out on your own for a little bit and you're kind of set in your ways doing stuff. And now you've got to look at, he's not looking. So now you've got to look at, you've got to deal with somebody else's position, you know, and respect that, kind of work through that. So, yeah.
Selfish
Yeah,
desires.
so it's just really a lot of things kind of start, you know, they go at you in a relationship, you know, and it's not necessarily just marriage, you know, it's also, you know, as you're getting to know each other and you are courting, you know, and things, you know, there's just a lot of pressure in the world today. So So some of the scriptures that we came across, Angel kind of found a bunch of things, and we were looking through them. We wanted to share. So I got all the short ones. She got the ones that are wordy.
I think I got what I was assigned. I'm just saying.
Whatever. So the first one is Malachi 2:14, and it says that she is your companion and your wife by covenant. And it's really important, as Angel said, the covenant. It's a binding agreement, and we should not take that lightly. Till death do us part. We're making a statement in front of our friends and family as witnesses, and more importantly, in front of God. And we're saying that, I prefer this lady, and I enter into an agreement and a covenant, and I just, to love, honor, and obey. I can't remember all the rest of it. The obey trips me up a little sometimes, but it's, yeah.
We have 1 Peter 3:7. Husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. And we broke that out just a little bit. Revival Christian Fellowship had kind of 5 aspects of that scripture verse. And first was submission, where husbands are instructed to live with their wives in an understanding way, and showing honor to their wife as the weaker vessel. And when I really think about weaker vessel, because he was even like it's offensive. I'm like, I'm not offended by that, because to me, women are they're naturally nurturing, which makes me, my feelings matter, not that yours don't, but but the way we treat people, it's different. The way we handle things is different. The way we raise children is different. And that's okay. God made men to be a certain way, and that's awesome. And God made women to be a certain way so that we would complement one another. So, I'm not offended by that whatsoever.
What a perfect plan, right?
It is if we do it God's way.
Perfect.
Right. The grace of life. Husbands are to treat their wives as heirs with them of the grace of life, so their prayers will not be hindered. And like we talked about the weaker partner, we're cool with that. Sight, heirs together, couple shares in the grace of life together. That's our inheritance in the Lord.
Yep.
Yeah, you can go to that.
Yeah, the next one that we had is Colossians 3:19, where it says, "Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them."
Wait, I just like that one. It just rings, doesn't it?
Should I read that again?
I think so. It's great. I love it.
Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. And it's, in my career, and a little offline here, but in my career, I've worked in maintenance, and it's a very male-dominated field, and as an electrician, maintenance in the postal service and things, you can't go home and talk to your spouse the same way that you might have, been horsing around
Or
with
like when you're a Marine.
What? Do we have any former Marines? No, we don't. We have a Marine in the house. But, you've got to know, the audience, so to speak, and that really matters. So,
Ephesians 5:33. However, each one of you must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband.
what's that say at the end?
I must respect you. You
do a great job.
I've really tried. I've really
You
tried.
do a
I
great
really
job.
have. I've tried. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you appreciate that. Luke 6:31, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I'm like, this is one of those scriptures that I'm pretty sure we should say to ourselves every day, right? Like when you get out of bed, before you talk to anybody, just get it all nailed down. Do unto others, right? As you would have them do unto you. Like, here we go, Lord, help me, Jesus.
I think that's one of those scriptures that even, kids, we can all probably go back and think, man, I've heard that when I was a little kid. And maybe you didn't even hear it in church. You've heard that about, how you treat other people. And it's just one of those things. It's like that statement that, mom said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. It's just a few of those things that it's like go back to your earliest childhood, and you can probably think of hearing that. It's like, do unto others. Oh.
Colossians 4:6. I especially like this one. This is one of my favorites. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each other. So we think about when you, even preparing food, you have it seasoned just right so that it tastes good. It appeals to you. I mean, really, that's what our speech is supposed to be like. Properly seasoned so that it tastes good to the person to whom I'm delivering it to, So there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that.
Next is James 1:19. It says, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. So it kind of goes back in my mind to that filter, that, I thought maybe I don't need to say it at all.
Right.
I definitely don't need to say it out of anger. But slow to speak, quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, and it's really important.
Well, and then, along the same lines, Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. You don't get much more distinct than death or life. That is how important it is when we choose what we're going to say or how we're going to respond. It's that it carries that much weight. That's how much power is in our tongue.
Yeah, and last week, as pastors were sharing the conflict resolution, this statement that I'm going to make here, kept coming up in my mind, that nothing you ever say can be taken back. It cannot be unheard. So as soon as it comes out, how what you're saying, it's like you might be angry and you might feel like you're justified in making that statement. But if you're angry and it could in any way be hurtful, you can apologize. You can say it and it's like, oh man, Eric, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to say that. It's too late. The damage is already done. And then you're going back to build back that trust and that honor, and you have no idea how deep that hurt is and how well it anchored in. Pastor Jeannie, as she shared last week, and I love that you guys are so transparent.
It's awesome. It's so beneficial.
I call it, relational leadership,
Yeah,
and,
it's really good.
But as you were sharing, the situation that you guys were delivered from a couple of weeks ago and preparing, for a Bible study, you shared the emotion. You got choked up. You could see that just thinking of what was said, you didn't have to repeat it. Not even necessary. You could tell the hurt was so deep, that almost 10 years, that hurt was in there, and she had buried it and insulated it. And even though pastor had apologized or they had moved on and things, that hurt was still there. And I immediately thought of this, that as soon as you say it, it's too late. So it goes back to that Kenneth Hagin statement, that,
let it die unborn.
Yeah. Just take a break, take a deep breath, pinch your lips together, something, whatever you got to do, because once you say, you let it out. And I always say nothing good comes out of speaking in anger. That's when you slip and you use bad language, or you say something, or you call somebody a name, or you make some negative reference to them. That is not going to help the situation, right?
That's right.
And you can apologize all you want. It's not going to fix it.
And we, like I said in the beginning, we never really had that issue. One issue, and he's told me to share this, so I'm not sharing. I'm not throwing it out here just willy-nilly.
Being transparent.
He told me to share it. Sometimes when you respond to somebody, the tone and the look, and you could be it can be a condescending tone, even if what you said, like if you wrote it on paper, it might not look bad, but when you pair it with a condescending tone and a look, it's hurtful and it's damaging. And I think we probably had that issue for a while, and I probably choked it down. And then I got braver. Got braver, Clark. And I'm like, I don't remember how I said it well, I know how I said it, but I just looked at him one day and I'm like, when you look at me like that, I want to poke you in the eye.
Do it, it'll make you feel better.
Oh my.
Where's my
If you
pen?
can only hear Vanessa.
Wow.
You missed it.
All the ladies up front.
So it's actually kind of a joke now, because I'm like, and he's like, ooh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's
So the looks matter, and in the tone that you say things, it matters, and it all goes back to that respectful communication. It's honor. It's all of those things.
yeah. My boss always comes back. We write policy now. It's what I do. And he always makes a statement. Words matter. How you use them, which words you choose to use. The emphasis you put on the word, where you put it in a sentence. When you're writing a policy statement and things. All of those things matter, and I think about this as she was sharing that again, sometimes it's just how you're saying it. The emphasis you put on the word, it just comes out wrong. And although you're saying one thing, as Eric shared, you're meaning it one way, it is heard completely different. And what she might focus on as I speak is how I said it, or again, the look on the face, and I get the poke.
Pin. It's the pin.
So,
I want to say something real quick, though, because Pastor Jeannie was right. There are times to address things sometimes, and there's times it really is okay sometimes to not. And 3 years ago, I probably couldn't have addressed that with you. You were not in a place to receive it. But you've changed so much as you went, you kind of mentioned when we started this, change can happen. And if we allow God to be in control, it's going to be for your good, even
Amen.
if it's through rough circumstances. Well, over the last couple of years now, there's more transparency then, and maybe some things like, hey, we've been needing to address this. How about we talk about this? And there's more freedom to do that now. And it was okay that I didn't do that 5 years ago. It was okay. It would not have bore fruit then, and now we have fruit from it. So just putting that out there, that's important to take. You know better than anybody in a relationship where that other person is at, because they might be able to have a constructive conversation about it, and they might not be able to. And to feel like you have this burden that you always need to address it. It's a problem. We need to address it. Yes and no. Maybe. Today, question mark. I don't know. You know where they're at. Maturity-wise, spiritually speaking, will it bear fruit? It's a valid question, in my opinion. Will it bear the right kind of fruit? Yeah. Will it move you in the right direction?
Yeah. If it's not going to edify and build them up, then I think timing is important. And I'm not saying avoid the conversation. That's not what we're saying.
No.
But there's a time to come back and do that. And at a point, a time of hurt or, whatever the situation is, that might not be the time to bring that up and talk about it. It's like, let's table this, and we really need to talk about this. Not today, but we need to talk about this because, we don't want to have this problem in the future. We've done that before. Sometimes we hear, but we don't listen. And I tell people all the time, today I sent an email out to 40 people, a very specific email. I thought I used plain American English language, pretty clear. It had been through a vetting process, so I mean, there was nothing offensive, there was nothing confusing about it, and it was asking these secretaries, these administrative assistants, to schedule a 30-minute meeting in the month of April. That pretty clear? Anybody confused so far? So I have one tomorrow at 11 a.m. I have 5 people that said, sorry, I missed the meeting today. I have 2 others that said, I'm not going to be able to do this because I'm on leave this week and next. And so I bit my fingers because that's what I do. And so it not only applies to our physical hearing, and sometimes it's how we read and we pay attention. It's that she's going to talk about active listening and being present, but sometimes I say that people are they're not hard of hearing. They hear me very well. They're hard of listening. They're just not paying
He doesn't say that to me, though, so don't be worried.
I love life, and she cooks dinner a lot, so.
Yeah, I would cook a lot less.
Why does this taste funny?
As he's talking about active listening, we were really it's quite an adventure actually building something together. I'm sure you and Pastor Johnny kind of experienced that too. It's one thing to speak on your own; it's another to team build that. But when we were talking about active listening, I thought, a lot of that is really when something is important to you. It needs to be important to me because I value you. I need to be present when something's on your heart, because that just shows, it's just one more way for me to show that I love you, yes, and respect, is that if it matters to you, it matters to me, and it's a demonstration then of my love.
Yeah. There's a lot of times that we come home from, our jobs or whatever, come home from the day or doing something, and you just want to share with somebody, kind of what the experience was. Even if it's a bad day, you just want to, I don't want to say share in the misery, but you want, you want some edification, something to build you up afterwards.
You want somebody on your side.
Yeah, it's like, honey, I had a bad day, and then you go on telling, it's like, yeah, it'll be better tomorrow, or whatever, and you've got to have that. But, it's again, like she said, if it's important to them. So I come home a lot of times and I share stories about, something that happened at work, somebody I work with and things. Now, she's only met a couple of people that I work with in 31 years. I don't bring people from the Postal Service home. They're business acquaintances and friends at work kind of thing. But I've been in leadership for a long time, long time in the Postal Service. And I'm not friends with my coworkers and those that work for me. They work for me. I have expectations for them, and I'm pretty clear about what I expect. And I'll confront them. I don't care if I've worked with them for 10 years, and they could be great. That one aw heck moment, is enough to set them back. And I'll bring them in and talk to them about it, the expectation. But I come home and I share those things, and she pays attention. Not like there's a test afterwards, maybe. But sometimes, you're sharing that, and it's just, it's the sounding board, and it's just, she's listening, and I'll share, up here is even tonight, anytime that you're up and you're speaking to people, and you're looking around the room, and you're seeing people that are making eye contact and nodding their head, or, it's like, oh, yeah, that's important. And when you're having that conversation at home, with your spouse or significant other, that's important to reciprocate that. Listen.
Well, and pastors make no bones about it. They say it all the time. It's the phones, that this is whoever's in front of your face, and especially your spouse has your undivided attention.
So not that we've said anything funny so far, but I just want to share a little story. Some friends of ours came to us and just sitting in conversation, and and the female side of the story, was sharing and said, about a story that her husband was telling her, and it was the difference in TNT and C4. You know. Now, I'm not going to point him out of who it was or anything, but Shelley, what's the difference between TNT and C4? You know, but anybody that knows Eric's background, you know, with 31 years in the Marine Corps, thank you, sir, for your service. You know, 31 years in the Marine Corps, you know, and Jim, same thing, you know, he's got 30 years in the Army, and it's just, you know, the things they've done and seen. And so Eric was just sharing with Shelley the difference between TNT and C4, you know, and the capabilities of them. One, you know, goes boom, one will cut, you know, and just the different things. Now, Shelley she's probably not going to use that knowledge that she has now. But put yourself in that position. If she would have shut Eric down in that conversation, and I'm sorry, I should have probably asked you guys if it was okay. But if she would have told him, you know what, I don't care about that stuff. I don't want to hear it. You know, let's talk about the garden or whatever. You know, it would have been hurtful. You know,
Talk about chickens.
yeah, talk about the chickens. Yes,
It's a bad mix.
But you know, Shelley not only, you know, listened to this, she retained the information, and we were talking about it, and it was funny. She was having fun telling the story about it, you know, and I think how many times that I've done that to Angel, telling her about something, you know, and the way something works, or sharing some worthless knowledge that I have and imparting it on her, like she's ever going to use that. But she was gracious enough.
Most of the time.
Transparency. So,
Like, why are you telling me this?
why do I need to know this? But I appreciate it. You guys have a great sense of humor and a great relationship. But it was just, as I was doing this, it's like, you know, that's so important. Shelley was probably never going to go out on the internet and look that kind of information up. And
That's good.
it's good.
That's
Yeah.
good, Shelley.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but, you know, she listened, and she now knows, you know, what she does with that information. She'll take it, I'm sure she'll take it to her grave. She'll remember that, and they'll remember that conversation and things. But like I said, the flip side of that, if she would have shut it down, you know, that would have been hurtful. Just like, man, I was just kind of sharing this, you know, and it was just conversation. So.
Well, again, that's just one way that she honored him, but it wasn't because she like saw it somewhere. It's just she had this respect for her husband. She like, this means something to him. And so I'm going to be present so that, you know, he can share.
Now, Eric could have brought up that same subject at the men's meeting, and we would have all been out there
know
with
your
our
audience, Eric.
we would have been out there with our ink pen taking notes, you know, and where do we put our hands on some of this stuff, you know? Can we demo? I've got 20 acres, so. So getting back to our notes. So back to the pastor's example last week of the 1%. So owning our part in a conflict or issue is so critical, so critical. And I made a note that, you know, we've got to humble ourselves. You know, we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. They're not intentional sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, occasionally we do
That's
actually
magic word,
just
Vanessa.
make a mistake. You know, but it's really, you know, it's really important that we humble ourselves and realize that we could have crossed the line, or we could have said something inappropriate or incorrectly in a way that was offensive.
You know, when you kind of back to this, to me is a life-changing example if you allow it to, is when Pastor was talking about owning the 1%. And you guys talk about, you know, it's 50-50, whatever, 100% really in a relationship. You own all of your part. But even in the midst of a conflict, and you're like, I'm like maybe 1% wrong. It's like, and Pastor I just love that you guys are so transparent, because we learn so much from the things, even being so honest to say, hey, God had me go back here, and there was some, maybe you thought at first 1%, and then you're just like, that might have been 5 or 6. You know what I mean? So you owned your part. He humbled himself, and he shares that has shared this openly. He humbled himself, and he went to people, and he was seeking restoration. And God's like, I need you to go make some things right. And I know it has caused me to examine a lot of things, and just like, where's my blame in this? And then you think about it, Jesus never worried about overpaying your debt. He paid all of it. All of it. I can't be like, well, mine's only 1% or maybe 5%. You know what? If you pay 50%, we need to be willing to overpay. Jesus way overpaid. He's like, I will take all of your mess and I'm going to clean it all up for you. And it has caused me to look at things a lot differently. And I know I would look at it with you and with even just interpersonal relationships, church relationships. It is not worth it, because even a 1%er, it's pride. And I know that just some of the things we've walked through in the last year, it just really has caused me to do a lot of self-examination, and it's an awesome thing. So I just encourage you to really to chew on that. If there's circumstances where you've got a 1%, that I'm got to be willing to go to somebody and say, you know what, how can I make this right? What do you need from me?
That's good.
Because, we were talking about kind of proper order, because that's bringing proper order to a relationship. When God says, hey, I need you to go back, I need you to fix this, that's restoring proper order. And when we have this flow, this is so important. Pushing in to have an awesome relationship with Jesus. Because the cleaner the flow is here, the better the flow is here. And it'll affect your marriage, and it'll affect your relationships. It will change. It'll change the way you just look. The look in your eyes. Jesus is just awesome, you all know that, or you wouldn't be here on a Wednesday night. But it really does. It marinades who you are, and you just start to take on his character, start to take on how he would handle things. It's an awesome transformation process if we allow him to do it.
And that's the key, if we allow him.
It's the key. It really is.
So some of the next section here, some of the hard situations that we've been through, we've talked about a couple of them. We're just going to share a few things here. And all of these, although they were difficult at the time that we were going through, we look back at them now and think about how much we learned as we went through those. And hopefully we never go through a lot of these things again. But if we do, we're better equipped to be able to handle those the next time it comes up. It's like, I remember this, and here's what we did, kind of going through. So,
The baby on the way.
yeah. So,
I'm like, what? No.
yeah. Yeah. So
you wanna
go ahead. You're going to start the struggles at the beginning of our marriage. You shared a few
I
of
shared
these.
a little bit about that. There was just a lot of struggles at the beginning of our marriage with the finances and the debt and the job, and we just really didn't have anything. And there was, it was just hard. It was really, it was hard. It was very hard.
Yeah.
It was a learning experience, learning how to put. I kind of talked about it earlier. There's some things that you end up putting into practice you really didn't realize you were putting it into practice, but how beneficial it was down the road. And you're like, hey, that was pretty good. Yeah, I'm glad I did that. Well, there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah, she shared as we were preparing this, stuff to share, and I'm sure she has shared it in the past, but she reminded me that she might have shared it. And she said that when we first got married and she was doing the bills, she remembered sitting in the apartment and doing the bills and crying.
Oh, yeah.
Just
It was
just-
hopeless, utterly hopeless. I was not prepared for that.
Yeah, and here we.
I was only 20 when we got married.
I was only 29.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
But I felt like, I'm like,
in case anybody wasn't doing the math, but anyhow.
I was like, this is so bad.
But she shared that, and here we are 30 years later, and it broke my heart. As she was sharing that it was
pretty
that
sure I
situation.
told you that before, but-
that's what I said.
Oh, but look how much nicer you are now.
Yeah. So my perspective, when we started our relationship, I was in the Air Force and I had come to the end of an enlistment and I decided not to re-enlist. So I did 9 years. And so I was leaving the Air Force and I was an electrician and I thought I was a really good electrician. It's what I wanted to do. And I have if I'm doing something, I do the absolute best I can. I wanted to know everything there was about it. And I thought when I got out of the Air Force, I had a plan. I had a new wife. We had a baby on the way, and I was like, you know what? I got this. I'm going to get out, and I'm going to go work as an electrician. Big mistake, thinking that I knew what was going to happen. I wasn't at a point that I was going to God saying, hey, what do you have for me? Because I need some help. I would like to do this, and if you could facilitate. Everybody wanted me to start as an apprentice back at the beginning, test into the program, start at basically minimum wage, 3-4 years working through the process. I couldn't afford to do that. I had this mountain of debt, that made my wife cry. I had a new baby on the way, and, I didn't know if I could put diapers on the baby and stuff. So there's no way I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So there went my plan, and the future for that. So then I took a job as a maintenance mechanic working in a place, and it's like, okay, it's making money, it's helping to pay the bills, but there's no advancement. It's not going to go anywhere. Just seemed to me to be a dead-end job. And I'm going to fast forward some stuff, come back for the finance class, and we'll share some of those in the gap. So, but then I got an opportunity to start with the Postal Service, and all I was trying to do all the way through that was just provide for my family. And at that time, like she said earlier, that she could have shared, we don't have enough money, or I knew we didn't have enough money. I knew what was going on.
That was not a news flash, yes.
My allowance was giving her $20 back a week,
20 bucks. No, okay, this is great. This is how poor we were. When we would we were in Illinois, and we'd go to the Scott Credit, you know what I'm talking about? We'd go to the Scott Credit Union, pull up the ATM. That's when you could get $10 out at a time. And when they upped it to 20, we were so mad. Like, how am I supposed to go and get $20 out? That's ridiculous.
Now we can only go every other week. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were kind of
there you
laughing about
go.
it. We were
That's
laughing
what it
about
was
it that we would get money, and a big splurge for us was go to Taco Bell.
That's only if he did side work.
Yeah.
Like, do you think?
She won't even go to
do you
Taco
think
Bell
we
now.
can?
So yeah, so I thought I had a plan, but it wasn't God's plan, and we really struggled. And again, all I was trying to do, I was doing side jobs and everything. Anything that I could do to make money. They weren't buying plasma at the time, but if I would have found a place, I probably would have considered that. So, but and then poor Angel left at home, raising teenagers.
Yeah, they grew up, and they outnumbered me.
Too big to put in the fire department box.
Too big. Art was traveling a lot. God's been so faithful, and all the while, it's just kind of this. There again, it's covenant, it's respecting one another, it's being unified, and especially for real, if you have teenagers, you better have a unified front. And he used to always tell the kids, I had her before I had you, and when you're gone, I'm still gonna have her. So we were always, what did I call us last night? We were the brick wall. I'm like, you ain't getting through this.
And they knew not to, try and play mom and dad against each
no.
other. Not that kids would do that.
No, they knew
those of you
better.
who don't have them yet, they won't. And Michael, when they get older,
Don't
they
worry,
will
they
not
start out really
try.
cute and small.
There's a reason.
Squishy. There's a
God.
reason why.
There's a reason God made babies small and cute. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was our unified front.
Yes.
Just lock arms, and again, we didn't map this out. We didn't before we, decided to have kids. It was just it just generically happened. We were on the same page with everything, with our finances, with how to raise the kids. She had an opinion about school. I was like, you go, girl, sweet, let's go. I'm with you. I'll do whatever we got to do, to make that happen, kind of thing. So, but it didn't stop there.
There's been a lot of challenges. That unity, that remembering that covenant, that respect has served well.
Yeah. Some of that experience that we went through kind of prepared us for the next stage. So fast forward several years, the kids are grown and moved out, and we're empty nesters, and then, well, kind of, one was still at home, but some stuff came up, and you know how it is. You finish with your kids, and then you turn to help them take care of parents, or they get to a point that they need help, and her dad, Marshall, just awesome from day one. He loved me like a son. I absolutely never once had an issue, with her dad, and he was awesome. But he got sick. He had Parkinson's and had some issues, and he got to a point where he needed help around the clock. And Dana, she was there. It's hard to take care of a spouse every day.
Yeah.
Every day when they need help, when they fall down, when they have accidents, when they just all the things, everything that they do. And he was a feisty little guy. I have no idea where she got it. But then,
I didn't get that. I'm not feisty like Dad was.
So again, back to that wasn't in my note.
No one can hear you, Eric.
Mike. He was at that point that he really needed some assistance and things,
Watching you, Clark.
Yeah, his balance, and he was still a go-getter, and he had enough wherewithal that he felt like he could do more than he could actually do, and that poor guy fell more times and never, thank God, he never got hurt and injured, maybe a bruise, but he would fall. And he's the only guy I know that you'd get a call to come over and help peel him out between the toilet and the tub. That's where he would fall, and how he would fit in there, you're like wedged to get him out of there. But he would, and then he didn't, he never hurt himself. But that was going on. And in the midst of that, Satan likes to double down. And Mom got hurt, a tragic injury. She got hurt, and then she ended up having hip surgery. She was in the hospital and rehab following. And I happened that day. She called me in the middle of the day, and I had just left the hospital. My brother had some procedure done, younger brother, and she called, and it was during the workday, and Mama doesn't call me during the day, so it was an important call, and then she's telling me on the phone that, she'd gotten hurt, she was in an ambulance going to the hospital, somebody needs to go sit with Dad, need to go take care of Dad. I didn't ask questions, I was asking questions, I'm sorry, I didn't challenge it at all. I was in the Jack in the Box parking lot, drive-through, with cars in front of me, cars behind me. I drove over the curb and out of there. I would have run over somebody, that was in the parking lot. I had a mission, and I was on my way because that's what I do. And so I took off, and I headed up there, heading towards the house. And then I called, to rally the troops, and I called my son, I called her. She was teaching school at the time. And we went into, we called it survival mode.
It was survival mode for all of us.
Yeah, for all of us. So she was in a hospital for a few weeks, going through the
10 days
surgery.
in the hospital and
Week and a half.
weeks
So.
in non-weight bearing.
Yeah, and so that caused me to spend 11 weeks sleeping in the basement on a mattress. So I would be there to be able to help. My boss was awesome, and by communicating with him, and letting him know the situation, he's like, you do what you got to do. It's family first. You work from home. You do everything you can. You let me know if you need something else. So I was able to continue to work there, while I was there, and being able to help keep an eye on him and take care of him and stuff. And I didn't let any of my duties go. I did everything, every assignment that was provided to me, kept doing that. And I would spend the night, there to take care of him. I left only to go home and mow the grass and then come back. Angel was teaching at the time, and she stopped teaching. She quit so that she could be there during the day to help take care of, mom and dad, and clean the house and do all the stuff that needed to be done, while they were recuperating. And as Dana was getting stronger and stronger to a point where she could go back to doing what she was doing. All the while all that stuff was going on, we were planning a wedding for our daughter, which is stressful in itself.
Do you see the importance of cultivating a unified front? Because you don't know what the future holds, so circumstances like this are really meant to destroy you. I am convinced that that season was really meant to destroy all of us. But there again, that even in a dark time, if you allow God to be in control and you really set yourself, because it can try and pull you away from your relationship with the Lord. If you cling to him like never before, even those things will turn to be your benefit. It's astounding, because I think we don't even know the blessings that we walk in today, because God has seen faithfulness. He blesses faithfulness. And it's amazing. And Mother, I hope you're watching, because it was an honor to serve you and Dad.
Yeah, every one of those things that we shared, we only share to say that as much as the devil was throwing at us, through that period of time, it didn't change who we were.
It made us better.
It made us better.
Much better.
It didn't change us of who we were, and we knew who we were, and we were favored. God's grace every day, and we made it a point to still have the meals together. To pray over the meals, and just all those things that were normal. That kind of make you think that life's okay and it's going to be better. And we continued to do all those things. And through all of that, as challenging as those things were, it didn't cause us to come apart at the seams.
Oh, God's so faithful.
Yeah.
God's so faithful, because this didn't do it and that didn't do it. You know what I mean? There's nothing in me that was strong enough to make it through these circumstances on top. But God is so faithful. He's just so faithful.
And we acknowledged our necessity to honor our covenant.
Absolutely. And that's a family covenant, marriage covenant, family commitment. That's what family does. And, it's easy to say, and we can see people, or we hear of stories, and we're like, yeah, that's awesome. That's what family does. And you're like, but then sometimes you're actually handed the invitation to actually do that. And I just want to encourage you, because I know a lot of us have had to do those things. But if you haven't, or if it comes across your path again, take the invitation. God is so faithful. And like I said, he turns everything around for our benefit as we do it unto him. Serving each other, serving and honoring parents, family, friends, just being there for people.
Yeah, I said, as we were putting the notes together and we were talking about this, that I wouldn't have done it any other way. And I can't imagine anybody I would have rather done all of this with, than her. I'm crazy about her. I tease her all the time. She's stuck with me forever. And I think she's okay with it now. I think it's reality is set in, and she knows I'm not really going anywhere. But all of this stuff there's been things that were tough, but we have such an incredible relationship, now. And again, just all of these things that were those stressors, and we just didn't allow them to take control and change who we were in a negative way, made us stronger, so.
Yeah, just knowing in the times of battle and like really taking it to the Lord, taking it to Jesus and knowing this is not the end of the story. I mean, I know I had to do that lots of times. I don't know if you were at that point, but I sure was. And really, I'm going to go back to even in these times, the respectful communication, honor, commitment, even I'm going to go to even church commitment, because there are times we need each other. We need each other in our marriages to be solid. We need relationship with one another, because when you come across these seasons, and we all do, I can look back and I see faces of who held me up during these times. And my relationship with the Lord, I could have turned away, because I could have said, the devil's like, oh yeah, well, where's God now? Oh yeah, he's really looking out for you now, isn't he? And like, that was a lie. And I didn't buy into that. But I took these opportunities, like we all need to, and it's like we need to double down, and we need to make sure that we support one another, because that commitment, that covenant, because this is covenant too. This is covenant. And the way God honors covenant, the way he takes care of me, is the way he expects me to take care of you. Daddy gave me a real good example of what covenant and faithfulness looks like. And as his children, we're called to do our best and to allow Holy Spirit to work through us to live up to that kind of standard. That's a righteous standard.
So we'll do first closing and a second closing. Midwest.
Oh boy. I think I'm good. Okay. I'm like, that was good.
Yeah. So as we put this together, like I said, we were going to have a little fun and things, but in all seriousness, we hope that something that we shared tonight, and in some way that we shared a story and things, that it helps somebody either online or somebody in the room, just as you kind of move through life. Life is tough. Things happen, stuff comes up, and we feel like we don't have any control. And it's really, sometimes it's a real struggle, and you just don't feel like, like pressing on, and, or maybe you don't feel like talking about it, or you get angry about it and you don't really know what to do. So, again, our desire is just that, something that we shared, be it funny or not, something resonates with each one of you, kind of moving forward, because it really is. Amazing relationships start with open communication, and just being willing to talk and to listen and be humble to know that sometimes being right is not all it's cracked up to be. A very famous person said that, and we're going to drive it in before we're done with the series. But
I think we're good.
So I think we can end the live stream now. Thank you, everybody that's joining online. Pastor Johnny, have a safe trip back home. Everybody that's watching, we thank you, and God bless you.